making sure that you're eating healthily. And all this time, many people really pack on the pounds as far as festivities are concerned. But we continue to give you the news, continuing a pace to show you what is happening with the current state of play as far as politics is concerned. And today is Tuesday. We have Siasa Fiesta coming your way, and we shall be turning our focus on what is happening currently, especially in the light of what is to be on the 31st in Buhungu Stadium with the Buhungu Declaration, where the Mulembe Nation will be also anointing their leader. Who will be the spokesperson, or who will be the person that also will be on the ballot? That will give you more details. And as far as the Political Parties Act is concerned as well, that also will be a part of our conversation this morning. But before we drill deeper, let's see what is fresh off the press this morning. We will begin with the Standard today. And this is the story of a serial killer. Revealed the serial killings of Molo River is what is on the front page of the Standard this morning. Police officers carry the remains of Purity Chebet. You know the story by now, we'll run it by you, which they exhumed from a shallow grave on the banks of Molo River of Equator Village, Mogotio, Baringo. And you can see this is the gruesome discoveries. A self-confessed serial killer shot residents of Mogotio in Baringo when he led police in recovery of 3 bodies of people he claimed to have killed and buried. That story continues on page 6 of the Standard today. Also still on the front page of the Standard, Raila raises political heat in Western. It says, Raila raises political heat in Western. The invitation of ODM leader as chief guest to a presumably Luhya Nation affair, and that of ANC Chief Mudavadi, the perceived region's kingpin, as an ordinary guest, has raised political tensions with fears that it could be a strategy to eclipse the area leaders ahead of 2022 elections. And that, as I've said, will also form the basis of our conversation here much later in the course of the program. Let me show you the teaser on top there, what it holds for us this morning. Here's Jubilee's fortunes went up in flames. That story continues on page 24 of the Standard today. 30 counties that failed to spend on pending bills. On page 17 is where they're listed, so you can actually flip over there to get all the gritty details of that particular pending bills and the counties that have been listed so far. ShoeTech rips up record books. You can find all about the shoe technology there and what it has. This is Nike on page 45 of the Standard today. This is how it looks, so make sure you grab a copy for yourself. Right up next is the Daily Nation, and this is what is on the front page of the Daily Nation this morning. Battle for Western vote on top there, but the main splash is MPs in fresh plot to clip Uhuru's powers. MPs in fresh plot to clip Uhuru's powers is the headline today. Public Appointments Bill is sponsored by Kisumu Town East Member of Parliament, Shakil Shabir. If they have their way, the president will no longer have unfettered authority to appoint state officers, including cabinet secretaries and principal secretaries. Instead, the legislators are seeking to change the law to vest this power in Parliament. This story continues on page 6 of the Daily Nation this morning. Also, contest, 2022 contest. According to the latest poll by InfoTrack, Raila Odinga leads DP Ruto with a narrow margin of 1%. That is 33% of Raila and 32% Ruto. Party popularity, UDA leads there, 33%. Also, ODM follows doggedly there, 32%, Jubilee at 2%, Wiper 2%, NC at 1%. Ruto's UDA is the most popular party in the country, followed closely by Odinga's ODM. 52% of the respondents feel that the One Kenya alliance, that is OKA, should dissolve and join Ruto or Raila. Opinion poll, it's neck and neck for Raila, Ruto. And of course, also this was trending yesterday. People raising a special umbrage on the validity of the opinion poll itself. So also that will form the basis of our discussion as well with our panelists much later in the course of the program. Deputy President William Ruto and ODM leader Raila Odinga are locked in a dead heat contest and would likely tie if the general election was held now. An opinion poll by Infratract has showed the political parties, the United Democratic Alliance and the Orange Democratic Movement, are also the most popular. This story continues on page 4 of the Daily Nation this morning. Battle for Western votes. 7 months to the general election, a political showdown is looming in Western as Luhya leaders converge at the famed Buhungu Stadium this Friday to decide on the community's political future. The meeting, convened by KOTU Secretary General Francis Atwoli, is already causing ripples, and you can flip over to page 7 of the Daily Nation for that particular story. Transition. He fought for us. South Africans mourn Tutu. This is on page 12. You can follow the story of the South African icon, Archbishop Desmond Tutu, passed on 2 days ago. That story is well fleshed out for you on page 12 of the Daily Nation this morning. Also on environment, how newborns are helping to grow tree cover in Siaya village. You can follow the story inside the Daily Nation. Let's move on to see what we have on the front page of the Business Daily. Job losses hit women harder than men. Job losses hit women harder than men. Staff is what is a splash on the front page of the Business Daily. It's all about economy. It says the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics data shows women accounted for 115,409 of 186,402 jobs lost in 2020. Women lost jobs at a faster rate than men in the wake of COVID-19 economic hardships, deepening gender inequality in corporate Kenya workplace. Data released last week by the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics shows that women accounted for 115,409 or 61.9% of 186,402 jobs that were lost in 2020. You can follow this story on page 4 of the Business Daily, where it is well fleshed out for you this morning. Also, we can move on to just show you what we have here. More fuel tanker deaths. This is on the tragedy in Eldoret. People can be seen here scooping split petrol for an overturned tanker at Cape Karen River Trading Center on the Eldoret-Webuye Highway on Sunday evening. 3 people died on the spot while siphoning fuel after inhaling petroleum fumes during the Sunday's 7:30 p.m. incident. Also, Kenya seeks IMF nod to use 14 billion shillings World Bank COVID-19 loan. You can follow the story on page 5 of the Business Daily. Treasury. Why state took over KU? Let me just try and show you there. Why state took over KU Hospital. Why state took over KU Hospital. The Treasury has revealed the state forcibly took over Kenyatta University Referral Hospital from the higher learning institutions after it defaulted on 10 billion shillings Chinese loan. You can follow the story on page 4 of the Business Daily. Looking at the teaser there, on Radar Screen today on health, Omicron, good news, bad news, and what it all means. Find all the details there on page 3. And also on polls, 2022 Elections Committee should press reset button, and that is on page 7 of the Business Daily this morning. Right, we just want to move on, and I introduce also my panel who are joining us this morning. Virtually, we have Stella Agara, who will be joining us much later. Also, we'll be joined by Nathaniel Mungare, and we have in studio with us Sam Mohochi, who is the former Executive Director of ICJ and also an advocate of the High Court, to just give us an analysis of yes, the current state of play as far as politics is concerned, and also looking at the headlines as well. Right, good morning to you, Sam. Good to see you.
Morning, Debal.
Yeah, it's been a while.
Long time.
Yes, happy felicitations for the holidays. I don't know how you've been spending yours.
Yeah, it's been good, and it's been a long break from event studio, so I think we've had a nice festive season. And we are all witnessing a lot of politicking. As usual.
As usual.
Yes.
And of course, heading now to 2022, this is going to be more heightened as well. But just looking on the front pages of the Daily Nation and also a top story as well that I'll be running by you momentarily, especially on MPs now saying that we'll clip the powers of the president, is still gravitating towards that particular debate that we've been having as a country on the presidential, system and the parliamentary system as well. What will be your take?
I think these tensions have been there for a long time, since the end of the reign of Kanu, and when people now started discussing about reining in on the presidency. Mm-hmm. However, I think we've come a long way as a country, and how I would look at it is that we need to always either improve or learn from our mistakes as we move. Mm-hmm. So we need to ask, what has triggered the recent interest? Have we taken an audit? Has the president abused his appointment powers?
Yes.
And if the case is not, mm-hmm. then one would deduce this to be another mischievous attempt at Parliament. There's also been argument that Parliament has run amok. Mm-hmm. What has the role of Parliament been in providing oversight? Mm-hmm. In providing oversight, even including to appointments made by the president. We all saw what happened after the 2017 elections and the appointments that came through. Mm-hmm. So to that extent, Parliament might also not be the best vehicle to really provide for the final call on public appointments, mm-hmm. because they did rubber stamp dubious appointments that we saw. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right, and generally, all this was really tucked away in the BBI. And we've seen the president saying, that life is not really lost. We're going to resuscitate it. We're going to give it life again in whatever form or shape, in every which way that we could use so far. Are you still seeing also that as the president really, trying to sneak in using his clammy fingers in a way, so to speak, to sneak in what Kenyans don't really, advocate for so far, because so largely this was a ruling, and the general feeling of Kenyans is we don't want BBI right now?
I think just relating to the issue of public appointments, I'll say this. Mm-hmm. I think public appointments, if it is all about the presidency of Uhuru Kenyatta, those public appointments are over. His time is over. He's done the appointments. We cannot change that. So the question should be, what if we take stock as a nation? We need to ask ourselves, how did he perform as a president in public appointments? Mm-hmm. What went wrong? Then we discuss, how do you ensure that that does not happen? Yes. Otherwise, I would still say that unfortunately for Parliament this time round, I don't think they're on the right track. You cannot take away appointments by the president, because the president leads the executive and ultimately is accountable to the people of Kenya. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Fantastic,
fantastic. All right, we shall be joining Sam Hochi and Stella Agara as well, Nathaniel Mungare, also virtually to discuss our after issues as well. But, residents of Equator Mogotio in the county of Baringo are still in shock after learning that a self-confessed serial killer had between September and November this year killed his wife, son, and a businesswoman and buried them in a shallow grave along the banks of River Molo that drains its water into Lake Baringo. Elvis Koske has that story, and of course also you can grab a copy of The Standard this morning, which has gritty details of this particular story as well.
The suspect, Moses Kipchirchir led the police to the scene after confessing having killed his wife Purity Chebet, aged 24, and their 1.5-year-old son. Police arrived at the first scene with jembes and shovels and exhumed Chebet's body, which had decomposed in the less than 2 feet deep grave. 2 kilometers downstream, the suspect showed the police yet another grave where he had buried their son and marked the scene with 3 sisal plants planted on top.
Akadanganya mama wakuje wakae chini wa sort out hiyo mambo ya mtoto. So hapo vile mama alikuja ndio akamdanganya, akampeleka mahali alimpeleka na akamnyonga. Akaenda akazika. Sasa akabaki na mtoto. Hii mtoto akaona hii mtoto ni mdogo, is 1.5 years old. Atachunga namna gani? So pia akaona sasa ataulizwa mama alienda wapi, ikabidi pia anyonge mtoto na azike.
According to Mogotio DCIO Lukatumbo, the suspect confessed to have strangled the woman to death. The body had been buried with the hands and legs tied to the back with a rope that was still intact.
So tulipoanza uchunguzi, tukaongea na mshukiwa. Kufikia jana sasa akatuambia yeye aenda tuoneshe mahali alikuwa ameua na akazika. So tukifuatilia hapo mwanzo walikutana 2018. Alimpata mahali inaitwa Kamnyangale. Hii mama alikuwa anauza chang'aa. So wakafanya urafiki. So wakaoana kama bibi na bwana. Na wakabarikiwa kupata mtoto mmoja ambaye anaitwa Ezra.
Lakini tunaongea naye kwa simu. Sana. Alikuwa ananiambia habari ya huko mzuri mko wazima Sasa hatujai kutana naye. Sasa huyu Moses sana msimu tulikuwa tunaongea naye.
I still in shock. I can tell you that because whatever we have seen today we've never witnessed before. We cannot even imagine, we will never imagine that such thing can happen within our vicinities.
Shockingly, Chebet's body had been buried 10 meters away from the scene where the suspect had led the police on November 23rd to exhume the body of Nakuru businesswoman on November 12th.
Nafaa aende kotini tarehe 21 mwezi wa January 2022. Mimi niko naombi tu kwa members of the public. If you have any information, please come forward. We are here for you. We are your servants. We shall follow up on what you tell us. Because if this information was given to us earlier, we could have investigated.
Elvis Kosgei, KTN News.
Now, one person was shot dead while 2 others are receiving treatment as a result of gunshots at the Mama Lucy and Kenyatta hospitals, as residents of the Mukuru Kwanjenga slum engaged police in running battles as they protested a move by some individuals to erect beacons on a disputed land. The land in question saw hundreds of families spend the night in the cold after it was brought down by the Nairobi Metropolitan Services to pave way for the Nairobi Expressway exit. But the residents say some individuals are rogue. Government agents took advantage of the demolition to grab land. Our reporter, Fred Kagwenya, has more on this. Of course, those stories we know so far, the National Construction Authority have been keeping their eyes peeled and keeping out their ears to make sure that stringent measures are followed to avoid such incidents. Let's just...
For hours, the residents of Mukuru Kwanjenga engaged police in running battles as they fought for the right to protest against a move by some developers who are claiming a piece of this land to demarcate it. This is Samuel Okoth Otieno, receiving treatment at the Kana Health Center in the Mukuru Sinai slum, but he did not make it. He died not long after. Okoth was brought here after being shot as the residents of the Mukuru Kwanjenga slum engaged police in running battles over this piece of land.
Nilikuwa kwa nyumba na mzee wangu, amepigiwa simu, ameambiwa kwamba brother yake ameshotiwa. So, ila harakati ya kukimbia kuja hosi, kumuona amenipigia simu, ameniambia shemeji yako ametuacha. So ndio maana nimekuja hapa kuhakikisha kweli ni ukweli ameenda ama.
Another man who sustained gunshot wounds was also brought here, where he received first aid treatment before being rushed to the Kenyatta National Hospital. The third victim is a 17-year-old who is currently admitted at the Mama Lucy Hospital. According to Nicholas Orago of Haki Jamii, the operation and the setting up of the beacons by the private developers is illegal, since there is a court order that stops any activity on the disputed piece of land.
There was supposed to be a ceasefire in this particular place, and that the community was supposed to be allowed to continue staying here until the case is heard and determined. We have a case in court that is coming up for hearing on the 24th of January, and the conservatory orders indicates clearly that within that particular period of time, we need to allow the community to continue living here until the case is heard and determined in court.
The residents say they are moved to help enforce the court order, as well as secure the land where their houses once stood before being brought down by the NMS, was met with violence from the police.
Saturday, tunaona watu wanakuja kupima hapa, wamevaa reflector, tukakataa watu wasipime kwanza tujue ukweli ni nini. Jana vile vile walikuja hapa na mapolisi bado, wakakuja kupima tukakataa. Leo vile vile sasa wamekuja wakiwa wengi sana kukuja kuchukua hii shamba kupima, wananchi wakakataa.
Polisi wanapiga watu tear gas, marisasi for no reason. Sasa tulikuwa nauliza kwangu kwa government of Kenya, nani anafanya hivi vitu, zinafanya maisha ya watu na kama maisha ni kama it's like we are not a Kenyan.
Amnesty International Executive Director Irungu Houghton condemned the police over their actions, saying the court order in place secures the land and that the protection they have been offering the developers is illegal.
My question to the authorities, and I think we have to ask this question from a point of moral authority. How is it possible that this can happen when we have a government that is in charge, that we are not a lawless nation, that we are not a state that has no government? How is it possible that police officers can be tasked essentially to terrorize a community that has lost everything? How is that possible over Christmas period?
There is no legal order of court that allows any person to come to this particular place and make any demarcations or to make any adjudication in whatsoever manner until this case is heard and determined.
Speaking on phone, Embakasi OCPD John Nyamu said he is not aware of any fatalities, while refusing to acknowledge whether there were people who suffered gunshot wounds.
Tungeambia polisi wasitumie nguvu, hii si taekwondo, hii si movie tuna act. Waangalie binadamu, si ni binadamu sote. Mtoto mdogo unampiga risasi, do you think unafanya kitu ya maana?
Hatuelewi tumesimama wapi na tunaishi hapa kwa tent. Hatuelewi kabisa. Kwa sababu wananchi wamepigwa marisasi hapa, wanapigwa matia gas huko na marisasi wanapigwa wengine huko.
The case E050 of 2021 will be heard on January 24th, 2022. Fred Kagonye, KTN News.
All right, let's get a pinch of politics, where we know Western leaders led by KOTU Secretary General Francis Atwoli have already inspected the Mukuru Stadium ahead of a Grand Luya meeting that will be held on the 31st of this month. Those invited include KANU Chairman Gideon Moi, Wiper leader Kalonzo Musyoka, ANC leader Musalia Mudavadi, and ODM leader Raila Odinga. Now, those present dared Kakamega Senator Cleophas Malala to disrupt the meeting. Willie Lusige reports.
The inspection of Buhungu Stadium by KOTU Secretary General Francis Atwoli and other Western leaders, marking the final preparations of the Grand Buhungu 2 meeting scheduled to take place on 31st of December. The meeting will bring together leaders from the region to champion Luya community to speak in one voice ahead of the 2022 election.
Kwanza nataka nichukue nafasi hii kama gavana wa kaunti hii kukaribisha nyinyi wote tarehe 31.
Watu wameshapiga nguo pasi. Busia yote itakuwa hapa on 31st.
Hiyo siku iwe ni siku ambayo tutashikana mkono kama Waluya. Pia si tujitafutie haki yetu. Serikali ikiundwa, haiwezi undwa ungojee imalizike ndio ende kuomba.
The security that will be in Kakamega on 31st is security that